right now they have the NFL draft first wide receiver to be drafted, not named Travis Hunter, because whether he's a defensive back or a wide receiver at the next level, he's going to be the first receiver or whatever taken. So then you got McMillan from Arizona, who's an absolute stud, but didn't have the best year, but also Fafita wasn't great, and neither was the team last year, minus 220. And then Matthew Golden, plus 170. Every year there's a team that falls in love with the dude that runs the 4.2, 4.3 40. Golden did have the fastest time. If I had to place a bet on this market, it would probably be Golden at plus 170. I mean, McMillan, last year coming into the college season, I thought he would have been a slam dunk. But I don't know, man. I could see something happening, kind of like the Ruggs year, where Golden is the first receiver taken, plus 170. Emeka Ibuka is 10-1. Luther Burden is 25-1. Isaiah Bond, 150-1. And then Jaden Higgins, 200-1. Like, I like these receivers, but they're all kind of the same dude. Like, if you need a slot receiver in this year's draft, boom. Ibuka, Burden, Bond, Golden. But as far as, like, big outside threats, I think you're going to find some value later on. But, man, most likely it's McMillan or Golden. But I would probably, if I had to bet that, bet Golden, right?
I think that's the play. Yeah, I mean, McMillan, there's a reason he's a heavy favorite at minus 220. But I think there's a chance it could be Golden. I agree with you. Maybe even Luther Burden, 25-1. You know, he was.
I love him.
I love him too. He had a great career at Missouri. And receivers, you know, unless there's like a generational one, it really is just team dependent. I mean, each team kind of has, right? Like last year, we had all these great receivers, and we didn't know if it was going to be Neighbors who was going to be taken first. And obviously, you had Brian Thomas go in the first round, and you had so many good ones that you just didn't know which team would take who, Marvin Harrison Jr., all these sorts of things. And it ended up being that the Giants went with Neighbors, Arizona went with Marvin Harrison. I kind of feel that way again this year. I think McMillan's at the top of most of these teams' big boards, but like Golden could be for some of these teams. Burden could be, maybe even Emeka Ibuka as well. So yeah, I would not lay the minus 220 with McMillan. I think Golden would probably be the play, and then maybe Burden at 25-1.
I got to be honest, that's not a bad bet. It's actually a pretty good bet. At 25-1 right there. Like, if Isaiah Bond really did run a 4.2 or a 4.3, I wouldn't even hate a bet on him. But just because, like, honestly, if the Giants could do it all over again last year, I wonder if they still would have went Neighbors. And I know he's an absolute stud. He could be a top 5 receiver for years to come, man. But, I mean, he caught 107 balls on a crappy football team. Right? Like, you think if they could do it over again, maybe they reach on a J.J. McCarthy or a Michael Penix, because this year's draft sucks. Yep. You still need a quarterback. You know, maybe you get Shador, or, I mean, you'd have to move up most likely to get Cam Ward. At least that's what the market's saying. He's minus 400 right now to be the first overall pick. I would still take Abdul Carter at plus 225. And if I'm Tennessee, I know I'm not a quarterback away, and I hate Will Levis too, but the quarterback draft next year is much deeper. The year after that'll be much deeper. I just don't know if I want to reach on Cam Ward when you got an Abdul Carter, right? Like a freak of a football player. I would even take the great unknown and Travis Hunter. You know it's going to sell tickets. You're not winning anything next year anyway, but I don't know if I would do it with Cam Ward, man. But that's the thing, like with these receivers is, you know, the good teams, a lot of these teams are going to want to build the trenches because this draft is, you know, I mean, the tackles are really good. Hell, the tight ends are good. The running backs are really good. The defensive tackles and the pass rushers are pretty good. So I think these receivers come off the board, like you said, later than usual. Last year, there were just so many studs at that position. So it could be like a Luther Burden. You know, if it's a team like a Buffalo or a Kansas City, a team that wants more of a slot receiver, you got your outside guy, I could see it being him. So I don't hate that whatsoever. Because a lot of these you can't really bet right now. Genty's like minus $5 billion to be the first running back drafted. And I think he's going exactly to the Bears. I want that market. But that said, I love all these backs. I love Omarion Hampton from Carolina.
Same.
Henderson's a stud, of course. Caleb Johnson's the one that I love, though.
From Iowa.
He will be on my fantasy football dynasty team. I promise you that. Just bouncing off dudes, running dudes over. I love him. Watch the Caleb Johnson tape last year. If you didn't watch much Iowa football, I don't blame you. But watch his tape. He's not going to be the first back drafted. I wouldn't bet that. But he's going to be a stud. Judkins is coming out. Devin Neal's coming out. Scadaboo's coming out. Dylan Sampson, I think, is going to be good. I like R.J. Harvey. Giddens is coming out. And then Ollie Gordon. Last year, everybody, people were betting him to win the Heisman. He was one of the favorites. We forget he's even coming out, man. So I'm excited for these backs, but it's going to be Genty. First offensive lineman's interesting because it's a real market. Will Campbell, minus 110, probably the safe pick. But then I don't really hate Kelvin Banks Jr. at 5-1. I would only bet Campbell. I'm not going to lie.
Same.
Right?
I think Campbell, yeah. I mean, we know historically when it comes to the NFL draft, the safest picks are O linemen, and usually the guy who's the consensus like top lineman for most of these draft evaluators usually ends up being pretty good. Last year was Joe Alt.
Yeah.
Turns out to be awesome, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Will Campbell, the consensus, the tackle out of LSU, is he's going to be really good. So I'm with you. I think he's going to be the first lineman drafted. I actually like it at minus 110.
I was going to say.
Of all these markets, I know we were throwing around some bets. Like, that's actually one that I would fire on right now because that's going up. He's going to close. I think he could close like minus 170, Horvat, maybe even minus 200 or something like that. So I would jump on that. Like, you're not going to bet anybody other than Genti to be the first running back taken. That's just not going to happen.
No.
Again, that receiver market, I could see somebody else besides McMillan potentially. I certainly could. But yeah, I think Will Campbell right now. That's a really good bet.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet too at minus 110. Yeah, first running back, like you said, not really bettable. First receiver, I do think that there's some value there. And then first tight end drafted, most likely it's going to be Tyler Warren. Dude was a stud, 1,000 receiving yards last year at Penn State. Really was their only receiving option because their receivers didn't get any separation. They were playing him as the Wildcat quarterback, lining him up all over the place. He could block. But minus 500 is interesting because I really love Colston Loveland, man. And I know he's dinged out of Michigan, but the routes that he runs, he looks like a wide receiver out there. Plus 240, and he could block. Don't hate him. I like Arroyo, but most likely it's going to be Warren. The only other guy I would bet would be Colston Loveland. What do you think about the first overall pick? Because Cam Ward, like I said, is minus 400. Abdul Carter still plus 225. And then it's Travis Hunter 18-1, Shador 28-1. Anybody else is not worth a bet.
Yeah.
Jackson Dart's not going number one overall. But can you see Tennessee maybe either moving the pick or not going quarterback?
I could see them moving the pick, and I could see them not going quarterback as well, but I feel pretty strongly about that, and I feel like every day the odds move against me, Yeah. I took Shador at 13-1 to go number one overall. I thought I was getting a great price, and now it's 28-1, so it doesn't look like that's going to happen, because that was my thought, was Tennessee was going to trade the pick. You would think a team who would trade with them would be in the market for a quarterback. And just because we all think that Cam Ward's number one on the Titans big board doesn't mean that he's number one on the Raiders or the Jets or whoever, what team the Browns is looking for a quarterback. So I think that Cam Ward probably does end up going number one now. I think there's a possibility that Tennessee could trade the pick. A problem for Tennessee is right now a lot of these teams are starting to get their quarterbacks, right? I mean, the Jets, like, I don't see them trading up now to get a quarterback now that they went out and got Justin Fields. The Raiders obviously just traded for Geno Smith, so it's really the Giants there at 3.
Yep.
That would be the hope of, if you're looking for Tennessee to trade, that would probably be the realistic one, but I don't think it's going to happen. I was telling you off air, I think Cleveland, who obviously just re-signed Myles Garrett, I still think they could get Abdul Carter at number 2. Dude, pair Garrett and Carter together. Get Carter on a rookie deal. You have Myles Garrett for the next 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. I mean, the quarterbacks aren't that great this year. Build up that defense. Try and hit some gold, later on in the draft. I like the idea of the Browns still getting Carter at 2.
That's what I'm saying, man. I get, like, if you're the Giants, right, you can't move up and take Abdul Carter. I mean, you just can't. If you're the Giants, you have to take a quarterback. I was going to say the same thing about the Raiders. That's obviously changed. Mm-hmm. But, like, the Giants, last year you take Neighbors, he's a stud, and still Giants fans are like, what the hell are we doing? Take J.J. McCarthy. Take Michael Penix. I don't care. Take Bo Nix. Just get us a quarterback. So the Giants have to go quarterback. I'm with you, though, dude. Like, if I'm Tennessee, if I'm Cleveland, I'm taking Abdul Carter. This is not the draft to reach. This is the draft. Let's get the freak. Let's get the generational talent. And I know that, there's a lot of great pass rushers that come out every single year or every other year, but Abdul Carter is such a stud, man. Go back and watch him. Even in that Notre Dame game in the college football playoff was really good. Browns did make a deal, by the way. It kind of went under the radar right before we came on the air. They trade for Kenny Pickett, the Eagles' backup quarterback, former Steeler. They're sending, it looks like, a 2025 fifth-round pick and my boy, DTR. So DTR, unfortunately, not the quarterback of the future for the Cleveland Browns like I once thought. I really liked that pick. But if you look at the stats, I think he's actually the worst quarterback ever to start a football game. If you look at the numbers, it's been pretty bad.
I don't doubt it.
Worse than Peterman.
He's pretty bad.
He's been terrible. But Kenny Pickett also sucks. There's no way Cleveland could really go into the season with Kenny Pickett as their starter. Also, what the hell do you do with Deshaun Watson? That organization's a mess. That's why, if I'm Cleveland, I'm with you, dude. I'm just going to take the best available player, best pass rusher. I'll pair Abdul Carter and Miles and at least have a solid defense.
I agree.
I think that's the only way that you go right there.